I'm Dave Dinkle. Today we're going to talk about combating black hat wholesalers with the result of a $77,243.03 net profit, no money transaction. Here's one solution to the problem of sellers backing out before closing because they got a better offer. We're facing an industry-wide problem. What used to be an occasional problem for wholesalers is fast becoming a crime wave. When hardworking investors get a property under contract and then advertise it for sale, other wholesalers are going directly to the seller and offering more money. If this hasn't happened to you, then I can guarantee it will, and you should be prepared. Being prepared will save you thousands of dollars. Being unprepared will cost you even more. I created the moniker Black Hat Wholesalers using the analogy of the cowboys and bad guys. Good guys wore white hats, bad guys wore black hats. Stealing deals has become a sport, and the usual and customary method of doing business is for black hatters to go after other investors' deals. It's a shame, but it's a fact of life, and it has to be dealt with by being prepared for it to happen. This form of deal theft is illegal, fraudulent conversion, but these deal thieves are almost never prosecuted because of the time element to get a ruling from a court. The bigger the problem is enforcing a judgment if the investor wins. By the time the investor, white hatter, who has the original contract, finds out that the seller is not coming to closing, it's too late, except to respond legally. I wrote a white sheet report called 20 Ways to Make Sure Sellers and Buyers Come to Closing, and it can be downloaded at www.davedinkle.com/20 ways. One of these techniques to stop black hatters is to close on your wholesale deal. Next, you legally list it on the MLS because you own it, or list it on Zillow.com because you own it. You'll be getting calls from interested buyers, which will greatly help you build your buyers list. In addition, you'll get calls from black hatters trying to get you to sell to them. Their comments are worth hearing, so you can defend yourself against these guys with your next seller. In the following wholesale deal, the student called me and said he had this deal under contract and asked what I suggested as a sales price. I said $229,000 and suggested he close on it because otherwise he likely would have only made $25,000 to $30,000 selling it to other wholesalers. These wholesalers would have then reoffered it to their list at $220,000 or higher. He did as I suggested, and you'll see the closing statement for the A to B transaction and the B to C closing, which took place 30 days later. He did receive numerous calls from real buyers and other wholesalers and a few black hatters. He built his buyer's list, sold it through another wholesaler with a $3,000 JV fee, and was able to blacklist the black hatters. This is not an isolated instance for either the black hatter attacks or the size of the transaction. What we're seeing since the beginning of this year is the advent of larger and larger wholesale profits and deal theft on the rise. So be prepared for both. The black hatters justify their criminal actions by saying it's just business, but when it happens to them, they run around squealing like baby pigs. If you believe that deal theft is simply good business, then you can become a black hatter in minutes. Just get on every wholesaler's list and go after their deals. Real estate's a small community. It won't be long before your reputation precedes you. What goes around comes around is what I wish for anyone black hatting. This is the A to B portion of the double closing, top half of the A to B HUD. The important thing here is the purchase price, $134,900. As always, I take off all of the principals involved in the transaction and the closing agent. This is the bottom half of the A to B HUD. This is the amount that I funded. The student in this case wanted a round number, so it was $141,500. His earnest money deposit, as you can see, is zero. And I get this question every time. How could he put up zero earnest money deposit? And for the people who are realtors, for example, they will scream and holler the contract's not valid, so on and so forth. I'm not going to argue about validity of contracts. The courts have ruled that unless it has a specific dollar amount as an earnest money deposit requirement, the contract is in fact the earnest money deposit. Why is that? Because you're buying the property. But what we do is we put an earnest money deposit with a closing agent, and we use it for every offer until it's taken up. In this case, by one offer, it's then frozen. Now, on the HUD closing statement, the closing agent doesn't list it simply because there's no reason to. If it's given back to the investor has to then give it back to the closing agent. So very simply, the zero earnest money deposit means that he has an earnest money deposit of $1,000 $50 up with clearing agent in this case that we use, and he will not have to include that in his net profit. The other number here is $244.06. Because I funded a round number, closing numbers came out that he's actually taking a check home for $244.06. Now notice that the seller is receiving no money. Tells you immediately that this was a short sale. This is the A to B HUD second page. I brought it up because in this case the student had to pay some of the cost to be able to get the short sale to work. In this case over $5,747 just for those two expenses. This is the B to C HUD top half. This is the second leg of the closing. What's important again? Sale price, $229,000. Coincidentally, the number that I had recommended to him to sell it at. He had two other offers, 200, 220. He had 10 phone calls for the property. 3 of them were black hatters. 7 of them were fairly legitimate offers, one of which he took for $229,000. This is the B to C HUD bottom half, shows the profit. First thing we're going to look at is the earnest money deposit by the end buyer. It's $5,000. Had the end buyer not closed, the student would have filed a claim for the earnest money deposit. If he couldn't close on the A to B side because he didn't have the money, he would have lost $1,000 and he would have made $5,000 here. So without closing, he would have made $4,000. There's the repayment to the transactional funder, which is me, and there's the net profit, $77,243.03. This is a net profit because there's no earnest money deposit shown on the HUD. This is the B to C HUD back half, and what I wanted to show you, it's the bottom half of the back half, was the JV fee. There's where the other investor who brought the end buyer was paid $3,000. It's already included in the expenses, so the profit that I showed you, the $77,000 and change, is his net profit. So in recapping, $77,243.03 net profit, no money transaction. And if you say to me, whoa, wait a minute, Dave, back there in the background he has $1,000 somewhere. You're right. You're absolutely correct. But if you're telling me that you don't have the ways or means to be able to come up with a $1,000 profit when you show somebody that you can make $20,000, $30,000, $77,000, you shouldn't be in the business. What you need to do is be creative about how you do what you need to do to make things work without doing it illegally. Again, my question to students and others is, why not you? Thanks for joining me for this overview of a method of stopping black hat wholesalers.